Hello and welcome to the Rotary Times, a public access television program sponsored by and supported with the generosity of Rotary District 7610. During our program, we discuss Rotary International, its districts, its clubs, and the good works that it does within its communities. I am your co-host, Rotarian Pat Borowski, with the Rotary Club of Bailey's Crossroads. Today, we are speaking with Barry Gordon, who is the president-elect and membership chairman of the Rotary Club of Fairfax in Fairfax City, Virginia. Welcome, Barry, and thank you so much for being a part of our program.
Thank you, Pat. I'm glad to be here and share with you.
Absolutely. Well, you know, membership is a very important topic for our members. And your club has just been doing a wonderful job this year. So we really wanted to bring you in and kind of learn about how Fairfax has rebuilt their membership program and what some of your secret sauce is. But before we get to that, we want to know something about Barry Gordon. So tell us something about your background and your journey to Rotary.
Well, I've been on two journeys to Rotary. And many years ago, as an attorney in Massachusetts, I was asked to join the Sharon Rotary Club. And I said, wow, this is something pretty neat. And this was a small local community, and there were probably 30 members, plus or minus, focused on good works in the town of Sharon. And I was a member of that club for several years until I moved to another city. I took a hiatus from Rotary for a number of years and moved to Fairfax 3 years ago and said, what shall I do with the rest of my life? So I looked around and I found Fairfax Rotary. And here we are once again on the Rotary journey.
Well, thank you for your service over the time. Now, your professional background is as what? An attorney, practicing
I'm an attorney in Massachusetts and in Florida, not in Virginia. They wanted too much. They wanted too much money. So I maintained my licenses there, and I mostly did real estate and corporate work. I was not a litigator, and I didn't do family law because I didn't want all that stress.
Sure.
So,
well, that's great. So then after you joined the club, what kind of got you interested in going through the leadership chairs?
Well, you know, sometimes you are in a meeting and you walk out, you have to step aside for a moment and you come back in. And they said, say, you know something about Rotary. How would you like to be vice president? And I said, okay. Then they told me, oh, by the way, you have to get speakers for the entire year. I said, really? And I embarked on that venture, which was 2 years ago, and then became president-elect and membership chair. So that's how my journey got started.
Well, thank you for starting that journey, because we really do need well-qualified, experienced people to take on that mantle of leadership. And as I always say, you know, good leaders are people who lead from the front, or sometimes you just open the door for the rest of the club, you know. So, but let me ask you a question. Has the Fairfax Club always combined their membership chairman with their president-elect position?
To the best of my knowledge, that's been the subsidiary role of the president-elect.
Right,
and
go ahead.
I think that's a good idea, because as you assume the mantle of leadership, you get to know the members and the new members who will be the future of the club.
Right. Very good. Well, I know Fairfax. Why don't you talk some about the Fairfax Club, how they're positioned in Fairfax City, and some of the things that your club is noted for, and then we'll get more into your membership strategies and all.
Sure. As you probably know, the club was founded in 1931, so it's a long-standing club, and it's had its ups and downs in membership, but at all times, it's focused quite a bit on community service, especially working with the students and the teachers. We do a lot with international projects, and but we spend a lot of time trying to encourage the students to do better. And whether it's our dictionary projects, our constitution projects, and all things, including scholarships and working, giving the teachers awards for their wonderful service. And this is certainly morphed these days in light
Right.
of our new Zoom mode.
Well, yes. Now, I know that Fairfax originally had been a club of over 100 members. And then for a period of time, the membership declined. But about, I'd say maybe 2 years ago, your club started to move towards a more membership growth orientation and activity. How did that process come about?
It was twofold. One, one of the things that as I learned about the processes of Rotary, I figured out that there were a number of leads that were being generated by Rotary International. So I reached out to all those folks to see if they are interested in joining Rotary. In addition to that, the members, and especially one member, Ron Hubbard, became a one-man membership machine. And he was introducing people to Rotary, and he would bring them to meetings, whether he would meet them in a store, he would meet them in his business. He would just ask, hey, have you ever heard of Rotary? And once he did that, I would follow up with them and have coffee with them, have a meeting, bring them to a mixer that we have once a year or twice a year, and get them involved. And it snowballed. It was an amazing process, and I couldn't be happier.
Right. And when you talk about the RI Leads program, the way that works for our audience edification is that Rotary does have a website that it has a section where people who are interested in knowing more about Rotary, getting more involved with Rotary, or interested in possibly considering membership in Rotary can go ahead and register. And those leads are sent to the districts, and then the districts have a person that feeds that out. Some districts, they feed it out directly to clubs. Some districts feed it out to the AGs, and the AGs work with the clubs. I know since I've been an AG and involved with that program, one of the benefits has been that those people interested who live in Fairfax City, work in Fairfax City, specify that on their inquiry. And they generally also specify that they want a club in Fairfax City. And that gives a club, working with that kind of lead, a very leg up over the more general type of things we see in the leads where I live in Fairfax County, interested in knowing more or something of that nature. So when those leads come to you, Barry, if you can talk a little bit more specifically about your how-to, when you receive
Okay.
it, how you approach it, etc.
Well, I jump on it immediately. I find that, given my experience as an attorney, that if you don't react to a client or a potential client quickly, you lose them. So as soon as I see that there's a new lead coming in, I will email them, I will call them, I will have a meeting, I will invite them to a Rotary meeting, and I will do anything in my power to get them to develop an interest in Rotary. And as we will discuss, I'm sure, we've had a huge diversity in membership growth, and from age to national origin to professions, et cetera. And I think you would agree also that no age limit, no gender limit, no
Right.
anything limit is good for Rotary, because we need a growing and diverse population and membership. And what I do is keep on them. By that, I mean, I will call, especially new Rotarians, once or twice a month, just to follow up and talk with them, find out how they are. And that's been especially important now that we're not meeting bricks and mortar style. So I want them to know that we care about them and how we can help them and how they can help Rotary.
Now, I mean, what I've observed from the club, coming to your club meetings, which I always enjoy thoroughly, that esprit de corps, that commitment, that almost joy of knowing that you are an involved and growing club is really infectious. I mean, all of your members are now bringing in people. And so part of it certainly is understanding how to properly manage leads that come to clubs from the RI system. But that isn't your only avenue. And the kinds of things, how do you talk to your members about encouraging them to bring in members and how to look for members, etc.?
At most meetings, I will just say, hey guys, you know what? We need to grow our membership. We need to talk to people, whomever you meet. You've got to have a friend, you've got to have a business associate whom you really like and who does public service. I found that most of the new members have had an affiliation with another socially active organization, whether it's their church, whether it's Salvation Army, whether it's Bright Paths in Fairfax, but they've always had some concern for their community. So they're attuned to doing good deeds. And one of the things that we have the four-way test of Rotary, which we don't have to discuss now, but I think there's another part that's what I call Rotary Happy. And I encourage members to do things joyfully. And yesterday, as a matter of fact, I talked with a member who I haven't seen in a few weeks, at least in person. And what she said, I miss the camaraderie. I miss, as you say, the joy in being at a meeting. So our goal now is to transfer that joy, that happiness to Zoom.
Uh-huh.
So we're learning.
Right. Absolutely. No question about that. Now, and I think if I can identify one thing you've talked about actually several times during this conversation so far, is that as the Rotary Club of Fairfax, which is in Fairfax City, all of your members seem to definitely embrace and have a common recognition of what you are as a club, what you do as a club, and therefore what your service expectations are of members. Because in order to serve, you've got to have people who have the time and the ability to come in and pick up the load, if you will, on those activities. So I think it is really smart that you've made that connection to people who were already exhibiting some form of community service activity. How do you greet them in the club? What is the particular protocol you use when they come to a club function or a club meeting, when you're prospecting them and then when they are being converted to new members?
Well, our current Sergeant of Arms, at arms, whatever the right term is Jennifer Rose. And Jennifer Rose is an extremely dynamic person.
She is.
And she's director of the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And she is a dynamo.
Well, she
And
is.
having her on our team and having her announce our members and our guests and prospective members is where it starts. And then we ask each of them to stand, identify themselves, and to explain who they are and what they do for a living, etc. And then we try and shepherd them through the process. And we've not brought on, a member has stepped up, Julia Strickland, who is part of our orienting team. And she's on our membership committee to keep them involved and explain the processes of Rotary, which can be somewhat daunting.
Mhm.
And trying to make those user-friendly and identifying what things these folks like to do. Some like short-term projects, some like longer-term projects, like we have a new husband and wife members who are taking over community service along with Paul Gauthier, who's been on that committee for a long time. So they are a welcome addition to that committee because they're in their 30s and Paul's just a bit older. So we want to keep the best of the older members
Sure.
and have them mentor the younger members.
So really, so far, number one, you have a club whose membership understands that Rotary is a club, is an organization of legacy, and that the good works and the good deeds and the community development of making a better world needs to be carried on when we're gone. So if everybody appreciates that, is committed to that, then you understand you have to have new members. You definitely are a welcoming club. I noticed that when anyone new comes into the room for your club meetings, I mean, you are welcomed by several people, not just one.
True.
But several who are genuinely, outgoing and interested. Who are you, etc. In addition, this is in addition to your formal request of anybody, guests, etc., to introduce themselves. And then you also know what you are as a club. And you are identifying people who would be at least preliminarily suspected to have alignment with those goals and those commitments. You give them choice, and you're open as a club to allow them to engage, number one, as they will, and you're not afraid of changing. And how has that all worked? What if some of your little issues that you've had to work out in the club successfully, I might add?
Two things. Once, as we started adding new members, we saw people looking around and seeing people more like themselves. So because of the diversity that has enveloped the club, people go, oh, I see somebody, I can relate to those people. And as we all know, many, many years ago, Rotary was for older white men. And that has certainly changed, and especially in our club.
Yes.
If I can spin off from that for a moment,
Sure.
or we can get back to it later, we have, and I like to talk about these newer members.
Sure, absolutely.
We have a former Washington Redskin who originally came here with his mom from Cameroon. And he is an amazing young man. He went to the University of Alabama and is a business administration major. We have a couple, as I mentioned, a husband and wife. She's a family law attorney, and he's a physicist. I bet not too many clubs have physicists in them. We have two nurses who originally are from Ethiopia. We have just a range of folks whom, as a former Rotarian, I never saw in a club. I saw people who looked like me, acted like me, and that was okay. But to grow and become as relevant and even more relevant than Rotary used to be, this is a welcoming change.
Well, and I think that's another point that your club members recognize that the definition of your community has changed over the years. And I think clubs really need to appreciate that in terms of how has the demographic, the profile, the ethnicity, etc., of my community evolved over these years. And you have to learn, as you point out, Barry, to reach out and to be able to do that.
I neglected to mention, just because I'm showing diversity, we have two members who are of Korean descent.
Hmm.
And one happens to be a plastic surgeon, but as part of his fine motor skills, he's a fantastic violinist. And for our last meeting, I cajoled him into playing his violin for happy birthday to our members. And maybe
Oh, wow.
we'll do something as a longer concert, as a fun diversion in our meetings.
Oh, that is so cool. I think now, so in terms of how would you tell clubs to begin their rebuilding program and really building, first of all, a membership committee? Who in the club needs to be on that? Do you see? How do you work that? What are the kinds of topics you need to discuss and cover?
We have a membership committee of approximately 5. We have 2 newer members and 3 older members,
Mhm.
who were part of membership leadership, I should say. And we talked about who to look for. And I always had an expression I used my whole life, whatever job or profession I had, it was just ask. And you might not know that somebody is interested in becoming a Rotarian.
Correct.
So you walk up to someone in a meeting or whatever, you see what they're doing, what they're about, and you can just say, hey, have you ever considered being a Rotarian? And they look at you sometimes and go, what the heck is that? And that is your opportunity to go and talk to them, have a cup of coffee or a cocktail or a beer, whatever suits you, and see what they're about. And are they interested in becoming part of a greater cause that they never heard of and never knew existed?
Mhm.
So it's helpful to all of us that Rotary is coming into the 21st century, has started, I understand, having TV ads and looking
Yes.
outward towards the rest of the world rather than talking to other Rotarians. And I think expressing that thought to your club members is extremely important. And it's not who we used to think of as being Rotarians. There's nobody in the world who wants to be a Rotarian if they have the willingness to share their knowledge and want to be a good social citizen.
Absolutely. And I think you do that very well. In fact, one of the new programs I think you added this year was the Constitution, right, project that you're doing with your
Correct.
middle school.
Yeah, we were giving out for the last few years dictionaries. I think it's to 4th graders. And this past year, we started a Constitution project for 8th graders, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's funny that looking at the dictionary project, you say, oh, you can go online, you can, you know, any sort of internet resource, but the kids enjoy having a book. And they can look at that book, and it says Fairfax Rotary in the book. So we have constant advertising and maybe future Rotarians. But in each of those books, the Constitution, which has an explanatory portion to it, what the heck do all those funny words mean? And the dictionary are really good educational resources, even when the internet goes down.
Well, Barry, thank you so much. Those are great. I hope clubs, you've been sitting there and writing down your little how-to and check-off lists, because Barry, you've really, and how many new members? Just give us the number of how many new members you brought in thus far.
In a year, we've brought in 23 new members.
23 men, and they have members in the pipeline. I want to underscore that. Well,
Yes.
Well, again, thank you very much, Barry, for being with us. And I want to thank our audience. Funding for this program is made possible through the generosity of the Rotary District of 7610. For Rotary Times, I am your co-host, Pat Borowski, from the Rotary Club of Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia. You are always welcome to join us at a Rotary Club. Just find us a meeting for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can find a club in your local area through the internet or on Facebook. And you can also find District 7610 in the same way. Remember, our time is your time, and together it is time really worthwhile and spent well. Please join us for the next programs as we continue to celebrate Rotary's 111 years of service above self in order to do good in the world. Thank you.